Good morning. My name is Dan Jansen. I'm the chair of the Planning and Development Committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest?
Yes, agenda item C2, housekeeping amendment pertaining to 1 Mill Street only. And the reason is I'm a volunteer director with the Quater Mill Heritage Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? No, moving on. Okay, we'll move to item C, public meetings. Today, there are 2 public meetings in accordance with the Planning Act. I'm pleased to advise that this is being broadcast live on the Township's YouTube channel, where a recording of this meeting will be available. Notice of the meeting regarding application Z2407 was sent by first-class mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Signage was also posted on the subject property to provide information about the application. As the proposed housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment application, Z2503 applies to all lands within the township. Notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with the Planning Act by placing an ad in a digital newspaper with sufficient general circulation in the area to which the proposed amendments would apply. Notice was also posted on the township website and social media channels. All of this was in conformance with the Planning Act process for a statutory public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment application. The purpose of this meeting is to inform and provide the public and Planning Development Committee with an opportunity to ask questions or express views with respect to the proposal. The format of the public meeting related to Z2407 for lands recognized at 3372 Agnew Road will be as follows. The applicant's agent will generally explain the purpose and effect of the application. Second, township staff can provide further information and clarify any statements of the application and or their agent. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal. And then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And lastly, members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification on the proposal and provide comments. The format of the public meeting related to Z2503, the proposed housekeeping amendment, will be as follows. Township staff will explain the purpose and effect of the application. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal, and then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And lastly, members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification on the proposal and provide comments. At the conclusion of the meeting, the applicant, their agent, and or township staff will be given the opportunity to respond to the questions and comments received. No decision will be made today at the public meeting on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment applications. Following this meeting, the information obtained, including questions and comments submitted by members of the public and committee, will assist the township to determine next steps. The township is the approval authority for the proposed zoning bylaw amendments, for which this committee may recommend the bylaws be considered by council or ask that additional information prior to council's consideration. If in the future, Township Council decides in favor of the application by adopting recommendations from this committee, members of the public who have provided oral and or written submissions but disagree with the decisions may be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal under the Planning Act. Individuals attending the public meeting in person or by YouTube, Zoom, or telephone may email or call the Township's Planning Department to submit contact information to receive notice of the decision on this application. The public meeting for 3372 Agnew Road zoning bylaw amendment application. I now call on the applicant's agent, Jonathan Pauk from Morgan Planning and Development, to please present the information provided within item C131 of the agenda package and explain the purpose and effect of the application. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Council, members of the committee. My name is Jonathan Pauk. I'm a senior planner at Morgan Planning and Development. Here on behalf of our client, Mr. Tim Edwards, owner and operator of Evergreen Golf Course, as well as the adjacent property to the northeast or west, sorry. Next slide, please. This slide is just indicating the location of the subject lands. There are 2 properties subject to the zoning bylaw amendment application. As you can see, they're outlined in the orange outline on the screen, generally located to the southeast of Lake St. George and at the intersection of Highway 11 and South Sparrow Lake Road. Next slide, please. Just a quick site description of the two subject properties. The larger parcel located at Agnew Road generally contains most of the Evergreen Golf Course and various accessory buildings, as well as a small mini putt and other buildings related to the golf course operation. The northern portion of that subject property is vacant and generally contains forested lands. And then the other property located at 3511 Huffman Road, that subject property contains a single detached dwelling where our client lives. So he owns both abutting lands and is generally serviced by a well and septic. Next slide, please. This is just an aerial image. As you can see, the southern portion of the larger parcel contains the Evergreen Golf Course as well as the forested lands. And then in the top left corner, just the other subject property in which our client owns, developed with a single detached dwelling. Next slide, please. Just a summary of the applicable land use planning policies. The subject property to the south is located in the C9 zone, which generally reflects the golf course or commercial golf course use. And the subject property located on Huffman Road is currently zoned rural residential. In terms of the township's official plan, the subject property located at Huffman Road is designated rural. And similarly, a portion of the northern portion of the Agnew Road property is located in the rural designation. As shown in pink, that generally reflects the area of the Evergreen Golf Course. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment before committee today is to rezone, is to implement or satisfy a condition that was imposed by the Township's Committee of Adjustment, which requires to rezone a portion of the property, generally shown in green, to the Greenland zone, and to take it out of that C9 zone, which would permit a golf course essentially. So we're ensuring consistency and conformity with the upper tier document being the County of Simcoe official plan. So the area in green is to be rezoned from C8 to Greenlands in order to ensure conformity with the County of Simcoe official plan. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the Agnew Road property from the commercial zone to the Greenland zone in order to ensure conformity with the upper tier of County of Simcoe official plan. And those lands would be added to the Huffman Road property in the northwest corner. There's no new buildings or structures proposed, simply just enlarging that property of the single detached dwelling property. Next slide, please. As part of our zoning bylaw amendment application, a full planning justification report was submitted addressing the applicable planning policies for the application. Next slide, please. So just in summary, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment before committee is to satisfy a condition of consent that was implemented by the township's Committee of Adjustment application through a boundary adjustment, and again would rezone a portion of the Agnew Road property to Greenlands as it would be added to the adjacent and abutting property located at Huffman Road. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the township's planner, Emily Hell, have anything further to add to the materials and information presented by the applicant?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pauk, for his presentation regarding this application. So as indicated by Mr. Pauk, the application is before committee as a result of a provisionally approved consent application to facilitate a lot boundary adjustment. As indicated, the application seeks to rezone the lands being transferred from the golf course property to the lands at 3511 Huffman Road and would merge into a single property. So no new lot would be created as a result of the provisionally approved consent. As the land to be transferred or no longer to be associated with the golf course, a rezoning to a more appropriate zone was included and recommended by the committee. Just to note that through the new official plan that was recently approved by the County of Simcoe, the lands being transferred in that new official plan are also designated green lands. So it was the opinion of staff that rezoning, opinion of staff and the County of Simcoe, that rezoning those lands to be transferred to a greenland zone reflective of that land use designation was most appropriate. And it would be offer the most protection to those lands, rezoning it from that commercial use to that greenlands zoning. I just wanted to speak to the special provision that is proposed. So just to clarify that section 318 of the township zoning bylaw stipulates that where a single property is split into multiple zones, each such portion of the lot shall be used in accordance with the permitted uses and zone requirements for that applicable zone. So as the resultant lot fabric, as indicated by Mr. Pauk, would have that split rural residential and greenland zoning, although one property, it would have that split zoning. This means that the rural residential policies would apply to the rural residential portion of the lot, and the greenlands policies would apply to the greenland section of the lot. So section 6 of the township zoning bylaw speaks to the lot requirements and permitted uses for the rural residential zone, with the same found in section 9 for the greenland zone. I just wanted to note that the rural residential zone and the greenland zone have different minimum lot area and frontage requirements. So essentially section 9 of the zoning bylaw for the greenland zone has an existing lot area and frontage. So as these lands would be new greenlands zoning, the special provision proposed just seeks to deem that portion of the property in the greenland zone to comply with the zoning bylaw. It doesn't change the permitted uses. It doesn't change the development potential of the property. It's actually more protective than the current zoning on the property. So there would be no changes to the property, just seeks to ensure that the lands comply with the zoning bylaw once the provisionally approved consent is completed. But that's all the additional information I have for this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to the public portion of the meeting, any persons present in person, on Zoom, on the telephone, or who have either questions or comments on the application will now be invited to speak. Township staff will call upon each registered participant. For those in remote attendance, unmute yourself when called upon and turn on your camera if you wish. All will be required to give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that your comments will also be recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel and will remain online. The Township does not have the ability to edit the live stream to remove any personal information provided in the course of submitting comments or questions. Emily, are there any members of the public registered to speak?
Thank you, Chair. There is one member of the public registered to speak on Zoom. That would be Pat Sawa.
Oh, hi. I was just wondering, with your amendment, does that negatively, can you hear me?
Yes, can I ask that you just simply state
yeah.
your name and address for the record?
Yes, Pat Sawa. We're at 3356 Cox Drive. My son Michael is the owner of that property. Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So the township added rezone the provisionally approved severed lands, that part. Just wondering if that negatively or positively affects the process or the landowners going forward. Notwithstanding section 3.18, multiple zones on one lot. That notwithstanding clause, how does that affect the process?
Emily?
Thank you through the chair to Ms. Sawa. So the special provision just seeks to deem those lands to comply with the zoning bylaw with respect to the lot area and frontage for the greenland zone. There would be no changes to the development potential of the property. So it just essentially seeks to finalize that provisionally approved consent. So there would be no anticipated increased impacts to adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you.
If there are any other members of the public who do not get called and would like to speak, please unmute yourself now. Or for those in person, please microphone and give your name and address for the minutes. Seeing none. Could the township's planner please summarize any additional correspondence that has been submitted on this application and provide any further information?
Thank you, Chair. We have received additional correspondence that wasn't added onto the agenda or since the publishing of the agenda from Michael and Pat Sawa at 3356 Cox Drive. They just sought clarification on the special provision and expressed concerns with the site-specific provision. And Pat Sawa did join us this morning and speak to her correspondence, so that's appreciated. And I just wanted to note that staff have spoken with Mr. Sawa in advance of the meeting to try and provide that clarification.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does the applicant's agent wish to provide any further information on the application or in response to the correspondence?
Thank you, Chair. Not at this time.
Do any of the members of the committee have comments? Member McIntyre?
Thank you through the chair. Just a question to perhaps Emily. At one point, was this all one property and then it merged somehow? Does maybe someone in planning have the answer to that, please?
Through the chair, if I could, to Member McIntyre's question. Yes, I do believe at one time these lands were all held in different ownership. As staff has talked about on numerous different applications and files over the years to council, it is very confusing even to people who work in this industry if properties are what's called separately conveyable or if they're merged on title. So just because you get two tax bills doesn't mean you have two properties. Just because you get one tax bill doesn't mean you have one property. Same pins at land registry. You could have one property with 10 pins, or you could have two properties that share a pin, right? So it's very confusing, and that's why real estate lawyers do what they do, because they need to investigate that and see if properties are separately conveyable or not. So I do understand from several years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, talking to this landowner about how he did perhaps used to have the properties in different ownership. And at one time he received different tax bills. What sometimes can happen is there was a time period, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, where land registry basically switched over to a digital system, and that resulted in some consolidations of adjacent lands. A general previous rule under the Planning Act is that if you owned two properties adjacent to each other and they were not previously a severance, or they were not a full lot on a plan of subdivision, then they would merge on title. So I'm not sure exactly what's happened here in this situation. I might have known 10 years ago when I helped him look into this, but I can't recall off the top of my head now. But certainly this was previously split, approximately where this gentleman has now gotten provisional approval to re-split the property. So really the intent of this application here is to consolidate the non-golf course lands with the dwelling and then leave the golf course lands as their separate owned property.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And just to add to Member McIntyre's comments and to Katie's comments, this was two parcels, and she's correct. It did merge. He had two tax bills. So when he built his new house, planning staff, I guess, allowed the rural residential zoning on the home portion also. And that's where we're at today. And this is the same old story we see across the whole township, where two properties are held in the same name. The province, for whatever reason, merges them, which is unfortunate. But just to add to that, Emily, could you just explain to the members of council and any of the residents that are online that the Greenland designation does not allow Mr. Edwards to divide that land or build anything on it?
If I may, through the chair, to Mayor Burkett. That is correct. The Greenlands designation as set out in the County of Simcoe plan does not permit for new lot creation. It's very specific and is pretty restrictive in that. So like indicated, this would not result in the creation of a new lot. It's to facilitate the merger of two existing properties. So no new lot creation would result from this, and no new lot creation would be permitted through this application.
Thank you. Member Minnings?
Hi, thank you through the chair. I have a couple questions. So I'm on attachment 1, which is the key map chart, but specific to the terminology that's on that, it shows that the portion that's the residential property is, you said it's called the benefiting lands, and it's rural residential currently. And then the proposal is to join it with lands that would be Z8 greenlands. So you're going to have a house on a greenlands property, is that correct?
Emily?
Through the chair, to member Minnings, that is correct. The zoning is proposed to be a split zoning. This is direction we received from the county of Simcoe. So the portion of the lands that have the dwelling that are zoned rural residential, in the new official plan, they are designated country residential. And the lands that are proposed to be transferred and zoned to the Greenland zone are in the Greenlands designation. So the respective zonings, although it's split, is reflective of the land use designations applied both in the county of Simcoe official plan and the township's new official plan.
So then help me understand from the resident, Pat Sawa, who spoke, is there an opportunity then for those new benefiting lands that are greenlands with a home on them to be further developed? Because that's not clear to me, based on what you just said, whether or not another application could come forward. So I just want to address what the resident who spoke said. Thank you.
Katie?
Through the chair, perhaps I can try and jump in here. So essentially, if all of this is approved, there will be one property that has both greenland zoning and rural residential zoning. The rural residential portion will be what is currently zoned rural residential today, and it contains the gentleman's house. The greenlands portion would be vacant and continue to be vacant, and it could only be used for the uses set out within the greenlands provision. So essentially nothing. I mean, they could maple syrup it, they could, have some trails for their own personal use through it, things like that. We always used to say in planning that, if you could get a severance, you should get one because you're never going to be able to get one again. And now, as we know, that's not necessarily the case. So, we don't have a crystal ball. I can't say if there's ever going to be more development on that property, but if there is going to be development on that greenlands portion, they would have to submit an application and go through the public process again. As it stands right now, there are no development rights for that property because the County of Simcoe official plan is very tight with their greenlands designation. So that greenlands designation does not permit a severance. It does not permit new lot creation. And that's partly why we're here, is because he's trying to join that property that he can't do anything with to his residential lands. Right? So he can't even sever that property off to create a vacant greenlands portion. He has to add it to the piece that has his house on it. So right at this moment, there's no further development rights. But as we've all seen, there's a push on for housing. There's a push on to allow more applications. So we cannot forecast if there would be development in the future. But if there is, then the neighbors will receive notification and we'll have another public process similar to this one.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So subsequent to that, then there is the potential, like it's not, just for my understanding, it's not protecting that land. Like it's not cemented that there is a potential. So you've already answered that. So I just wanted to kind of go back to my question, which is there is the potential, as there is for every land, to do that in the future. Nobody has a crystal ball. So I'm good. Thank you.
Any other members of committee wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare that the public information meeting on this proposal is closed. Madam Clerk, do we have a motion?
Yes, thank you. The motion reads that planning report number P25-010 dated March 18th, 2025, with respect to a zoning bylaw amendment application file number Z2407 for the subject property located at 3372 Agnew Road be received. And further, that a draft zoning bylaw amendment be presented to council for consideration at the next available meeting, subject to comments received prior to council's consideration of the zoning bylaw amendment, including additional submissions from the planning committee members of the public, circulated agencies and township departments.
Could I get a mover and seconder? Member Cox, member McIntyre, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the public meeting for housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment application. I now call on township staff to please present the information provided within item C231 of the agenda package and explain the purpose and effect of the application. Madam Clerk, do we want to take a very short break to see if we can get our video issue corrected?
We have a good, yeah. We can certainly take a 5-second break if you'd like, but it is quite natural to have a bit of a delay in the video feed. I corresponded with David. He thinks it's an issue with the camera, so the actual feed itself is fine.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. Okay, thank you, Emily.
Good morning and thank you, Chair. So before us today is a public meeting for proposed housekeeping amendments to the Township Zoning Bylaw 2010-65 as amended. Next slide, please. So just a bit of an introduction to what a housekeeping amendment is, and a bit of background on the proposal before committee this morning. So as committee is aware, housekeeping amendments to the township zoning bylaw is a standard practice that occurs every so often in efforts to continuously improve the zoning bylaw, resolve minor issues that are identified here and there. As the documents applied day to day, minor technical issues with its application are identified either by residents or by staff. And we generally keep a running list of these sort of issues as they come up for consideration in these types of housekeeping amendments. I just wanted to note that this housekeeping amendment isn't related to the adoption of the new official plan. It's kind of just intended to act as a bridge until we go forward with a more comprehensive review of the township official plan. So these are more identified different topics that are more minor in nature and not related to the adoption of the new official plan. This will be the fourth housekeeping amendment to Township Zoning Bylaw 2010-65, with other updates having occurred in 2012, 2018, and 2022. Next slide, please. So just as shown on screen, I just wanted to highlight, I missed it on the last slide, sorry, that this is just proposed changes to the zoning bylaw. The purpose of the meeting today is to seek input from the committee and members of the public. Similar with our other public meeting we have this morning, just seeking input on these proposed changes. So as we are the lower tier municipality, all of the policy documents and planning decisions need to be in conformity with the higher levels of government, in this case being the County of Simcoe, the province, and the federal government. So although some of these topics discussed this morning are identified as various technical issues, some of them are to ensure conformity with higher tier levels of government. So as they change their direction in response, we need to make sure that we're updating our documents to ensure that we are in conformity with their direction as well. So on the federal level, this includes changes from the Trent Severn Waterway, namely because we work so closely with them along the Severn River. We try to ensure that the township zoning bylaw aligns with their policies as well, just for consistency, but also for ease for residents to make sure that it's an easier process when they're coming forward with those building permit applications and approvals and things like that. At the province level, there's the various ministries. So that's Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Housing, things like that. as well as the Planning Act and other regulations such as the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, those types of items. And then at the County of Simcoe level, it's namely the County of Simcoe official plan and other bylaws and policies that they have. And then all of that is to be reflected in the planning decisions and policies at the township level. Next slide, please. So again, these are just sort of how those documents are related and how they play out. So again, Planning Act at the provincial level, including the Provincial Planning Statement and the Ontario Building Code, County of Simcoe being the official plan and other county bylaws. And then at the Township of Severn level, those are implemented through our official plan, zoning bylaw, and other municipal bylaws. So other proposed changes, in addition to ensuring conformity with upper tier direction, have been identified through various applications to council and committees that were continuously being approved in an effort to reduce the types of those applications and to make it an easier process for residents. And other proposed changes, as outlined in the report, are for improved clarity on building permit applications or other types of development proposals. Some of them are to ensure conformity with the township strategic plan and various economic development initiatives. And so as indicated, all of the proposed changes are outlined in the table included as an attachment to the staff report. We will briefly go over the proposed changes today. But certainly that resource is attached to the staff report, kind of outlines all of the proposed changes.
Good morning, committee. So this next section of the presentation goes through the proposed changes to section 3, general provisions of the zoning bylaw. So these changes are proposed to various provisions and subsections of section 3 to clarify the intent of the bylaw and make existing provisions more concise where appropriate. So starting with section 3.2.7 related to accessory buildings and structures and the maximum number permitted per property. Changes are proposed to apply that cap of 3 to all properties throughout the township. And this would achieve the intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan in maintaining a hierarchy between principal and accessory buildings on a property. Section 3.2.15, the changes proposed there would provide additional clarity in measuring the height of the deck where they are permitted to encroach into required yards. Staff have been asked questions regarding how the height is measured over the years, various times. So we just propose to introduce that clarification here. Section 3.18, clarity is proposed to be introduced with respect to the maximum number of dwelling units permitted per property. These changes that are proposed would not impact existing property owners' rights to create accessory apartments or additional residential units. And we would just note that further changes may be necessary to this section with the adoption of the township's new official plan, but that would come as sort of a greater analysis of the zoning bylaw with respect to the OP at a later date. Section 3.19.2 and section 3.19.3 relate to existing non-compliant buildings and structures. These provisions have proved contrary over the years, and the changes here propose to remove the conflicting provisions of the zoning bylaw in accordance with legal advice received by the township. Property owners would maintain the right to apply for a minor variance if they wanted to expand a building with a non-compliant front yard setback within that required yard, which is currently a very common practice that the municipality sees across our shoreline areas. The new official plan does encourage redevelopment to be set back further from the shoreline, so this change is in line with that intent of the official plan. Clarity, sorry, section 3.6.3. Sorry, maybe just back to this line. Introduces clarity to ensure that the flood proofing measures are implemented through development applications to protect those properties that are within the hazard lands areas of the municipality. The next slide in section 3.27. That is the section of the zoning bylaw which relates to refreshment vehicles. So the township is staff are proposing that the permissions of that section be expanded to permit refreshment vehicles in additional zones. This is in alignment with the economic development initiatives of the municipality as well as council's strategic plan. Section 3.31, clarity is proposed to be introduced and revisions to this section related to shipping containers, just to ensure consistency with the Ontario Building Code. Section 3.34.9 is a new provision, and this would introduce protections for vehicular right-of-ways across the municipality to ensure that development is set back appropriately from those areas so that snow clearing and travel of the right-of-way can be achieved without conflict. Section 3.42 is also a new proposed section. This would just introduce provisions of the animal care bylaw, just to make sure that our bylaws are consistent and there's no conflicts between various municipal bylaws. Lastly, section 3.34.7, following the giving of notice and the writing of the staff report, comments were received from the Trans-Canada Pipeline, requesting revisions to the existing provision in the zoning bylaw related to setbacks for the Trans-Canada Pipeline properties. The changes here would just introduce clarity and to the provision so that it was understood where the setbacks applied to and what type of development was regulated by that. If committee does wish to consider this request from the Trans-Canada Pipeline, a revised motion would be available for the committee to consider. And that concludes the changes for section 3, and Emily will move into section 6.
Thank you, Chair. So next I'm going to address the proposed amendments to residential zones in the township, namely addressing the Coldwater Seniors Apartments at 11 Mill Street. So as shown on screen, the property currently has a split zoning between RM2, I believe, and residential 1. So the proposed zoning amendment would seek to correct that split zoning, bringing it into a site-specific RM2 zone. All of this is in consultation with the County of Simcoe. They have requested consideration of reduced parking requirements as well as additional accessory uses on the property to facilitate the future development of the remainder of the lands. I did just want to note that although they are seeking a reduction in the parking calculation, the proposed ratio is still higher than most of their sites across the county. Namely in Victoria Harbor and Amabel, they have a 0.5 per unit parking space ratio, where we are seeking a 0.6 still per unit. So although it's reduced, it is still greater than most of their sites across the county. And the accessory uses are intended to reflect additional types of services that the County of Simcoe typically offers at their affordable housing developments. It's again intended to be accessory to the residential use. It's staff's understanding there'd probably be 1 or 2 rooms within the building. I'm intended to offer those additional supports. Thank you.
So the next section moving into is section 9 with provisions related to miscellaneous zones. The first slide here deals with the Coldwater Mill property. So a request did come into the municipality from the Coldwater Mill requesting that permissions be added to the existing zoning to permit a restaurant as an additional permitted use on these lands. Staff would like to point out that this use would have been permitted under the former Town of Coldwater bylaw, and what this amendment proposed today is just restoring those historic zoning permissions. No other site-specific permissions are proposed. It would just be the additional use of a restaurant. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chair. So the next property considered under Section 9 is the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association located at 1866 Richardson's Point Lane. The request was received from the association to recognize the existing use of a private clubhouse on the property. The site-specific provisions that are proposed through this housekeeping amendment would remove the restriction on the maximum size of the clubhouse through the definition of a private park. I would just like to point out to the committee that the development would still be subject to the zone provisions such as lot coverage, building height, and setbacks. Just that restriction that's established through the definition would not apply. Additionally, these site-specific provisions would provide clarity that docking facilities are permitted on the subject lands. And this recognition through the housekeeping would just recognize the existing use on the lands that has been well established since, I believe it was 1955 that the association pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So next, I'm just going to provide an overview of the proposed amendments to various definitions of the zoning bylaw. To start, I just wanted to speak to the definition of the addition for catering establishment. This is paired with the revised definition of restaurant. It's actually seeking to define what a catering establishment is and would seek to expand the types of services permitted to be associated with a restaurant business. This is supportive of the township strategic plan initiatives for an economic development. And we have had a few business owners reach out to us inquiring about this type of use. And then with respect to the definitions of deck and dock, those are also kind of tied together. These proposed changes come from direction and information received from the Trent Severn Waterway. Essentially, it seeks to clarify the differences between what a dock and deck is and to ensure that our definitions match what the Trent Severn Waterway would consider a dock or a deck. Other changes to definitions include the change to a high water mark. This is just to correct the number that the township zoning bylaw sets out as the typical high water mark to align with neighboring municipalities such as the township of Georgian Bay, just to ensure consistency with adjacent jurisdictions. Changes to the definition of kitchen is also paired with the new definition for a wet bar. These are intended to address common hurdles that we are seeing residents have with building permit applications. I'll speak to a bit more to the definition of wet bar shortly. But again, these come as a result of requests from residents that we are constantly seeing through building permit applications. Still provides those protections, but offers a bit more flexibility. And then with respect to lot line exterior and yard exterior side, these seek to also recognize the presence of 1 foot reserves that we commonly see between properties and the municipal road allowance. It just offers that protection to the municipal road allowance, ensuring that all buildings and development is set back appropriately. Similar to the definition of high watermark, the definition of mobile home is changed to ensure consistency with the Ontario Building Code, just changing the code reference to appropriately reflect that. And just tying back to catering establishment, as noted, these seek to expand the services that restaurants can offer on site, again, in line with the economic development initiative of the township. And as the proposed changes to storage containers, this is intended to ensure alignment with the municipal bylaws, including property standards and clean and clear, just clarifying that old truck bodies and things like that don't constitute a storage container. And then this is just a bit of an expansion on the new definition of wet bar as tying back to the definition of kitchen. So this comes as a frequent request of residents. Essentially, the new definition of wet bar expands these permissions, but still aims to prevent the creation of illegal accessory apartments. It specifies that a wet bar cannot have cooking facilities, and does differentiate it between a kitchen and a wet bar. So it just protects those apartments from being created without the proper permissions, but still allows homeowners that flexibility to have the installation of a wet bar accessory to their residential use. We did include recommendations that the definition would be specific, that it has to be located within the principal unit to prevent situations where a wet bar being located in a sleeping cabin or an ARU and things like that. But that's all I have for the definitions at this time. Thank you, Chair.
So the final component of the proposed housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment is various mapping corrections across the township. So just on the next slide here, we have a number of the changes proposed. So the first one is just mapping amendments to correct inadvertent errors or omissions that have been lost since the initial passing of zoning bylaw 2010-65. These amendments would return the previous zoning rights to residential properties that were inadvertently lost. So for example, as committee is likely aware, there are a couple properties on Ryanbird Street that have an incorrect zoning on them. So this change here would seek to correct that. And then lastly, just some of those site-specific amendments. Emily and I have covered the Coldwater Seniors Apartments, Coldwater Mill, and the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association. There's also various township-owned lands that are proposed to be corrected, have their zoning corrected through this process, such as existing water and wastewater plants across the township, the municipal pits and parklands, as well as the West Shore Recreation Center and the North Public Works Yard. And finally, there is also 3317 Crescent Bay Road. These lands previously had an overland drainage course that went through there that drained some of the surrounding lands out to Lake Couchiching. Years ago, the township rerouted that drainage to be underground. So now there was no longer the requirement to have that environmental protection because the drainage was subsurface. So now that EP, it is appropriate that that be removed from that property in that instance. So that concludes staff's presentation on this application. If the committee or any members of the public have any questions, staff are happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad and Emily. Any persons present in person on Zoom or the telephone who have either questions or comments on the application will now be invited to speak. Township staff will call upon each registered participant. For those in remote attendance, unmute yourself when called upon and turn on the camera if you wish. All will be required to give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that your comments will also be recorded and live streamed on the township's YouTube channel and will remain online. The township does not have the ability to edit the live stream or remove any personal information provided in the course of submitting comments or questions. Brad, are there any members of the public registered to speak?
Thank you, Chair. We do have 5 members of the public who registered to speak at today's meeting. So I'll just roll through these, and if they are on the Zoom, then they're welcome to unmute themselves and provide their comment. So the first being Alicia Bruya.
Hi, yes, it's Alicia Brie, and I'm from 4328 Legs Run. I have a question about section 319.3. It was the request to remove an entire section that spoke about the addition, extension, or enlargement of existing non-compliant building and structures. I didn't see or hear anything about that as to why that change was being requested.
Katie?
Through the chair, I can speak to that briefly. So the permission to reconstruct a non-conforming building or structure is still there. It's being left in. What staff are proposing to remove is when someone wants to reconstruct while making it larger. So right now our bylaw contradicts itself, and we've had a lot of issues over the years with this contradiction. People have been on council for a long time will recall we've had a lot of back and forth about, kind of these older, particularly cottage buildings. When people go to try and do renovations to them or additions to them, and they end up having to remove the entire structure, and then basically 98% of the time need a minor variance anyway. So we did recently obtain some legal advice on how to make these policies better, more clear, while still respecting the case law that allows everyone to tear down and rebuild as of right. So that's essentially what the legal advice Obviously, I can't go into great detail since it was legal advice and we're here in open session. But the legal advice essentially was just to remove that one section of our bylaw, which, you know, I've worked here for 12 years and very rarely does someone actually fit within that provision of the bylaw anyway. Typically, we do see a lot of minor variances from that as part of committee adjustment, and that will continue. And, you know, we work with people to try and obtain these minor variances. It's an opportunity to look at every site on a site-specific basis. So the opportunity to rebuild and add will still be in. It's just the waterfront expansion we are considering taking.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for me. Yeah.
Sorry, was that another comment that you had?
Nope, I just said thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, great. Brad?
Thank you, Chair. There were also two other members of the public registered for that property. So we had Derek Bruya and Tyler Bruya. Not sure if Alicia knows it.
Yeah, so this is Derek Brie, Alicia's husband, 4328 Legs Run. I don't think if we registered to ask questions, I'm not sure we did it correctly. We registered to be able to call in on Zoom. So thank you for the clarification Alicia asked, and Tyler's my son. He was also interested, but he wasn't able to make the call.
Okay, thank you. Brad?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We also had Kira Thompson registered to attend this morning.
Good morning. This is Kira Thompson. I'm with the County of Simcoe. Just wanted to join to thank the township for taking the opportunity to revise these amendments for 11 Mill Street for Coldwater seniors, and we look forward to this partnership opportunity to provide affordable housing for seniors in the community.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Brad?
The last person that we had registered was Cheryl Elliott Frazier from the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association.
Go ahead, Ms. Frazier.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'm Cheryl Elliott Fraser at 33490 Maileys Road. I'm the president of the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association. The Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association supports the proposed amendments to zoning bylaw 2010-65, Section 9, miscellaneous zones with addition of site-specific provisions to a new open space zone for the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association property located at 1866 Richardson's Point Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott Frazier. If there are any members of the public who do not get called and would like to speak, please unmute yourself now. Or for those in person, please approach the microphone and give your name and address for the minutes. Seeing none. Could the township's planner please summarize any additional correspondence that has been submitted on this application and provide any further information?
Thank you, Chair. No additional correspondence has been received with respect to this application.
Okay, thank you. Do members of the committee have any comments? Member Cox?
Through the chair I see Jeff is here. I wanted to ask a question on 3.31 about the change from all containers require a building permit and shall only be permitted to now we've changed it to may require a building permit. If I could get a clarification on that, please.
Through the chair, well, the difference is the size. The building code's changed now that a shed at 15 square meters doesn't require a building permit.
Right.
And that's what we're classifying these smaller shipping containers as sheds. So anything that size or smaller wouldn't, anything over would.
Okay, thank you. And further to that supplementary, when they put a shipping container in a residential area, is it required to be disguised to look like a shed, or can it look like a shipping container?
Through the chair, just to follow up on Member Cox's question, shipping containers are not allowed in residential zones. So if you convert your shipping container so that it looks like a conventional shed, then we would permit that. And also just to touch on again with what our CBO said, it has to be used as a shed.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, okay. I
It
just
can't
had
be a
questions.
sleeping cabin, a
Right.
tiny house, etc. So the use of it matters when we're reviewing it. And then also, really, I think what we're talking about here is the appearance and the placement. It has to still meet, even if you don't require a permit, you still have to meet zoning. So it still has to meet setbacks. You still have to meet your lot coverage, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I've just had questions from people who are looking for a storage shed. And that seems to be a very convenient, less expensive way to have a shed. And if they're under the 15 square meters, right? Then if they put one in their yard and they don't need any minor variance or anything else, and they make it look like a shed and use as a shed, and their neighbors are all happy, then that's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, member McIntyre, and then we'll go to member Burkett.
Through the chair, I just wanted a little clarity on 11 Mill Street. That's section 6 bylaw 2010-65. Is that our M2? Does that still permit the Mill Street Seniors Building? I see it's a big spot. Will that still permit the Mill Street Seniors Building to expand under that RM2? Just a little fuzzy on that. Emily?
Thank you through the chair to member McIntyre. Yes, that's the intent of the correction. The RM2 zone permits for an apartment. So to correct the split zoning to rezone it entirely to an RM2 zone would allow for and facilitate the expansion.
Member Burkett.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, planning staff. A lot of information to digest in this report. Just wanted some clarity on the shipping containers. So when you say we're going to adhere to the other municipalities and what they are doing, what exactly are we looking for in this amendment that you have as part of the housekeeping report? How will it change from what we have today? Is there anything going to change? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Katie?
Through the chair to member Burkett's question, I'm not sure if we said other municipalities. I think we said we were trying to align with other municipal bylaws, like such as the clean and clear. We're really not changing anything other than we're changing the wording to specify what a storage container specifically is, so that it's not a truck body, for example. And then we're just updating that wording of will require a permit to may require a permit, because again, that's going to depend on the size and the situation and what it's being used for. So I wouldn't say that there's a lot of change for the shipping containers. I know it's a hot topic, and I know council has had some complaints and staff certainly has also had some complaints. It is very common these days. So if people don't like their neighbor's shipping container, they are welcome to reach out to us.
So supplementary, if I may, through the chair to Katie. So we're not going out there looking. It's all complaint driven, correct? Is that what's going to happen?
Katie?
Through the chair to member Burkett, correct. Staff don't go out looking for issues. We do get complaints, as council knows. We get complaints through council. We get complaints from residents. And then also staff has an obligation to look into things and inspect things when there is a potential health and safety hazard. Under the building code, under our bylaw provisions, we do have certain areas where we do need to look at things, even if we don't necessarily get a written complaint, or we might get an unofficial complaint, which council, sometimes passes on to us. So it's not black and white, and neither is anything in planning, I guess, while I'm at that.
Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you. Are there member Minnings?
Thank you through the chair. Okay, Brad, question for you, sir. I just need help in understanding. A few times you mentioned that the zonings were lost since 2010. Help me understand what that means, how that happens, and why I just find that a very strange statement to understand. Thank you.
Brad?
Through the chair to member Minnings. So unfortunately, just through the preparation of zoning schedules and the digitization of those from former paper maps into what we currently use in a GIS or digital format, sometimes there's small errors that are noted or things that are observed. Sometimes just inadvertently the wrong zone gets applied. For example, like the Rhinebird Street properties are now zoned environmental protection when they really shouldn't be. And formerly they were zoned residential 1. So as township staff become aware of these, sometimes we just find them by looking at other properties or we stumble across them. Residents bring these to our attention and let us know. Members of committee or council will also let us know if they hear of these. And staff just keep a running list of those. And every time we do a housekeeping amendment, we make sure to correct those as best we can to restore those former rights of those properties so that the former zoning isn't lost and that property owners have the zone rights that they once had.
Thank you. So just to summarize that, it was a mapping. It was done at the mapping from manual to digital mapping. Thank you. Okay, my other question is around sorry, it was I've highlighted it here, so I just have to scroll down. 3.19.3, which the resident spoke to, the very first speaker. And the changes about non-complying buildings, structures, and building enlargements, renovating, I guess, putting on extensions or additions. The proposal says to remove front yard, rear yard, side yard setback requirements. By doing that, I believe that this is now more restrictive to people who are on waterfront lots, perhaps, where it removes the ability by removing front yard, which is, I've come to learn, is the waterfront side, from doing enlargements and extensions. Am I reading that correctly?
Katie?
Correct. That is correct.
Thank you. So why are we making it more restrictive?
Katie?
So through the chair to member Minnings, we could bring something to close if you would like more information on this because it came out of a legal opinion. But essentially what I spoke to earlier is that not a lot of people actually use this provision because most people don't fall within these provisions, or they try to fall into this provision and then they end up getting a minor variance anyway because they can't save what was previously there. So most people who want to expand their non-compliant front yard dwelling end up going the minor variance route anyway. What we had in our bylaw in the past, or what we have in our bylaw right now, is contradictory, and we were given legal advice to do what we are proposing to do. So the way this works from the municipality's point of view is that I cannot disclose that legal advice in this public forum. I maybe could if I got further legal advice on how to do that. In reality, though, we don't see a lot of people successfully navigating through these provisions. We do see some people who are more in town or more on a smaller lot where they don't meet their side yard setback or they don't meet their rear yard setback. And they're trying to, for example, build a little mud room, build a small porch or entranceway. And we have left that in. So that's why the rear yard and the interior side yard, or any side yard, I guess. That's why that's staying in there. And that blanket 10% is going to stay in there. It was really the waterfront properties. As council's aware, there's a large focus on waterfront development. We hear lots of people are always interested in what their neighbor on the waterfront is doing, and we just don't have that kind of development pressure, I suppose I'll call it, on more in-town properties or more urban properties. So we have left it in for the small 10% that was always in there for non-waterfront, and it's just the waterfront provisions that we are looking to change. This also is just an interim measure until we do the new zoning bylaw, since we just have our new OP established. The new OP does have provisions more in depth for waterfront development than our previous OP. So we'll be taking a lead from that and seeking the appropriate legal advice at the time of our zoning bylaw to try and get something right. Just at this moment, the policies were found to not be right. So we're just trying to clean that up for now.
Okay, thank you. So then I would, I'm going to recommend that that be removed at this time from these housekeeping amendments so that we can have the opportunity to understand more. If it is case specific and you received legal advice, then I'm going to make an assumption that that was one property and one situation. And this amendment would propose to change all waterfront properties based on one situation. So I need more information on that because it is a significant change that makes that more restrictive. We have a lot of residential property owners in the township. So I think we all need to understand more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the committee have comments? Member Cox?
Yeah, through the chair to Andy or Katie. The last comment that Member Minnings made, how does that affect us if we change what we were asked to change, but we know, I know this sounds ridiculous, we're going to change in the future? Like, is it going to be another requirement that we'll have to have again to go for legal advice, or if we take it out, or is this something that protects everybody until we can do the new zoning bylaw? That's just a concern I have.
Katie?
Through the chair to Member Cox, I'm not really sure how to answer that. We mentioned to our lawyer that we were doing this housekeeping amendment. This wasn't something we were hoping to do through this. As I mentioned, we were hoping to really study these policies and study what would be appropriate and not appropriate under the new OP. However, when our lawyer heard that we were doing the housekeeping amendment, this was the suggestion as an interim measure to do this. So there will still be the minor variance opportunity available to everyone. That doesn't change. People don't get minor variances from this section. They minor variance the front yard provisions. So it is staff's recommendation. It was our lawyer's recommendation that we proceed with this. And then once the new zoning bylaw is in place, then we'll make sure we're crafting policies that meet case law, that we don't have these, hopefully, that we won't have these issues with. It hasn't just been one property that we've struggled with on these policies. I think all members of council that have been on for a long time have heard stories about people trying to build an addition and trying to preserve the original structure. And then they really get into it and they have to tear it down basically and rebuild it. So those people need a minor variance anyway. So the amount of people that actually use these provisions, I would say, is very, very low. Most people start out thinking they're going to use this provision and then end up having to get a minor variance anyway. So I don't think this is going to cause a lot of turmoil. I think the perception is that it is something that would come up a lot, when in reality, most people need that minor variance anyway, and that would still be available to them. So it is staff's recommendation that we keep this provision as coming out of the bylaw for now. And then when we can study it, hopefully we'll be able to bring something in that meets case law.
Supplemental.
Member Cox?
Yeah, so supplemental. So this would also take into consideration the high water mark too, would it not? So there would be differences in each one. Okay, I just, you're the planners. You've talked to legal. I think I'll just go with that. Thank you.
Member Minnings?
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to stick with siding with the residents who brought this issue forward and not with recommendations by staff, although I do appreciate those. But you mentioned that there was more information that you could share with council at closed session, and it's absolutely our responsibility to hear that since you now shared it with us. So I still stand by my recommendation to remove it.
Thank you. Member McIntyre?
Thank you, through the chair. Just off the back of my hand, I've got a comment on Member Minnings' remarks. If we're going to change it eventually anyway, why do we have to change it now? I think it should come out. leave it as it is for the moment. Staff's done a marvelous job putting this all together. That's something I missed when I read through it. I think Member Mennings has a good point. We're going to change it eventually anyway. So why don't we just leave it until that change comes? And I have a waterfront property, and this is a bit disconcerting to me that I read it and I didn't get it, and I'm glad that the member did. So I'm going to have to side with Member Mennings on this. I'd rather leave it as it is, and then when it's comes up for review, which you have indicated it's going to, then we can make an adjustment to it. I can't see so many people lined up to protest in favor of this. So I'm going to side with Member Mennings on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Burkett.
Thank you through the chair. So I'm a little confused. I know that we can't, from staff's perspective, speak very much to this topic, and I'm listening to my colleagues also speak. My struggle, Katie, is the urgency of this. Is this something that has to be done in the zoning or this housekeeping amendment? And if we don't do it now, is the opportunity to do it down the road another year from now, or is it 6 months? I think that's what I'm struggling with. I understand from your side what can and can't be said, and listening that it isn't a huge item that comes forward. If you can maybe just shed some clarity so that I can decide which way we should go.
Katie.
Through the chair to Member Burkett. So in order for us to do a housekeeping, we have to, we try to advertise in the media, which used to be print newspaper. So we rent space in Aurelia Matters. We push it out on social media. That's the process to do a housekeeping amendment. Obviously, it uses a lot of staff time, and we don't get any fees for that. So taxpayers pay for that process. So that's why we don't do it very often. That's why we try to collect things and do it grouped together. And that is what other municipalities do as well. It's a very common process. So I think the urgency we have here is that we were already doing this. And if we don't do this, then I don't know when the next time we're doing that is. And I am cognizant of the legal advice we received, basically to say, take it out. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question. Staff could bring some legal advice forward, perhaps at the April council meeting when the bylaw is going forward, and then council could make a decision at that time. Perhaps that's the way to go.
Member Cox.
Through the chair to Katie, I would prefer that when we had more information than doing it now. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Member Taylor.
So can we just leave it as is and not do anything for now? If we're just going to wait, so we'll take it out then, correct?
Member Cox.
Through the chair, I think they were saying if we leave it in because it's not being ratified today, it's got to go to council to ratify it, but we will get that information at council and we can make that decision to pull it before it's ratified at council. So we have to leave it in so we can discuss it, but Madam CEO.
Madam CEO.
Yeah, thank you. I would suggest you leave it in and pull it at council because it's better for public transparency. It's easier to take it out than to put it in at a council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Member Roquette.
Thank you, through the chair. So I might understand we're going to have a legal opinion based on what Katie's saying at that council meeting so that we can make a decision on the housekeeping amendment. Is that the way I am reading this?
Madam CEO.
Yes, thank you. I think we already have, through the chair, we already have the legal opinion. We just need to share it with council. So this bylaw, like any other bylaw, would be ratified at council. So at that council meeting, we'll bring you that information in closed session before you have to consider ratifying the bylaw. And at that time, if you wish to pull it out or change it or do whatever you like to it, you are welcome to do it.
Through the chair, if I may, thank you for that clarity. Knowing that we're going to have that information at that council meeting, if council is happy with what's said, we can move forward rather than pull it out now. I think we should just leave it in, but that's just my opinion. As you know, it's a lot of trouble to pull it out and put it back in again. So again, if as Madam CEO has stated, we have the ability to say no at the council meeting based on what we hear.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of council that committee that would like to speak? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that planning report number P 25-011 dated March 19th, 2025, with respect to comprehensive zoning bylaw 2010-65 as amended be received, and further that a draft zoning bylaw amendment be presented to council for consideration at the next available meeting, subject to comments received prior to council's consideration of the zoning bylaw amendment, including additional submissions from the Planning and Development Committee, members of the public, circulated agencies, and township departments. And further that pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act, no further public notice or public meeting be required with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I will note that that specifically deals with that Trans-Canada Pipeline section that staff referenced. And that we will add the additional note following the motion that staff report back to closed at the April council meeting with respect to the legal opinion on section 3.19.3.
Thank you. Member Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. I just wanted to thank staff. A lot of these housekeeping additions and the way you fix them and they've done have actually allowed many positive things to happen and go forward. And it's been a lot of work, and I know I've had quite a few calls, so I'm just thanking all of you for this work, and we'll be able to move on and get into our official plan and our new rezoning. Thank you.
Member Minix.
Thank you. And can I get a recorded vote, please?
Certainly.
Could I get a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Member Brennan, Member Taylor.
Okay. Recorded vote requested by member Minnings. Member Minnings for or against?
Against.
Okay, member Burkett for or against?
For.
Member Cox for or against?
For, because I'm waiting for more information.
Okay, member Jansen for or against?
For.
Okay, member Taylor for or against?
Against.
And member McIntyre for or against?
Against.
Okay, motion's carried 4-3. Oh, sorry, member Brennan. Apologies. You need to use your microphone, sir. Sir, you need to use your microphone.
For.
Thank you. Motion is carried 4-3.
Thank you. I now declare that the public information meeting on this proposal is closed. Before we move on to delegations, I'd like to just call a quick 5-minute bio break. We'll be back in
Ready to go anywhere. Get in your drawer.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring this meeting back to order. We're moving on to section D, delegations. Please be advised that in accordance of council's procedural bylaw, no decision will be made on the delegation. The committee will do one of the following: A, refer the matter to staff for report; B, take the matter to future budget deliberations; or C, take no action. So item D.1, Kathy Kerr, 133 Matchedash Street North, on AMO's report on municipalities under pressure, the human and financial cost of Ontario's homelessness crisis.
Thank you.
Ms. Kerr, you have 10 minutes for your delegation.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity for civic engagement because I believe it's vital to our democracy. We've talked about that here before. It's my privilege and pleasure to be here to discuss important topics that affect us all and to propose an economical idea. Welcome news for strained budgets and fiscal restraints. I'd like to take a moment to highlight what defines Canada, Canada's unique identity. Geographically speaking, we're extremely fortunate to live in Canada with its 10 provinces and 3 territories. This vast country covers 10 million square kilometers and is the second largest country in the world. Canada comprises 7% of the world's landmass. We have the longest coastline on the planet, 343,000 kilometers. And when it comes to fresh water, there's an estimated 31,752 freshwater lakes covering 9% of Canada's surface. Imagine the value in our resources and the stewardship responsibility to protect this great land and our sovereignty. Canada has 318 billion trees, the second highest number in the world. Our forests cover 367 million hectares, which is about 40% of the country's landmass. This is great news. Canada has long ranked among the world's leaders in the production of uranium, zinc, nickel, potash, asbestos, sulfur, cadmium, and titanium. We're also a major producer of iron ore, coal, petroleum, gold, copper, silver, and lead. Canada ranks 3rd for cobalt with 600,000 tons. Abundant oil and gas. This is Canada. It's all great news. So why am I here to talk to you today? Well, I'd like to switch gears for a moment and come closer to home, our municipalities. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, recently published their very much anticipated study entitled Municipalities Under Pressure, the Human and Financial Cost of Ontario's Homelessness Crisis. The numbers were staggering. 81,515 Ontarians experienced homelessness in Ontario in 2024. In 2024, municipal pressure totaled $2.1 billion. Investments from municipalities has grown over $900 billion. And without immediate intervention, homelessness could triple by 2035. And yet, the provincial and federal governments are not paying their fair share. The levels of government that caused this issue together are paying less than $40 million combined. Poverty is strangling the poor and the middle class. 2 million Canadians access food banks. Imagine, in Canada, I read you the resources. There's no excuse. As World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab is quoted, "If you control the food, you control the people." And he goes on to say, that's ultimately the end goal. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Premier Ford scooping up the green belt, prime agricultural land being taken away after vowing to the people before he was elected not to do it. But first, it's important for us to know our history and how we got to where we are today. Here's a quick timeline. In 1937, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, was founded as an advocacy group with no formal power. The organization later became affiliated with the United Nations. In 1946, the League of Nations transitioned into the UN, founded in part by the Rockefellers. In 1948, the World Health Organization was formed. As early as the 1950s, the UN began funding scientists to discover climate change. Did you hear that? Discover it. In 1976, the UN met in Vancouver to begin plans to take over the control of Canada. And in 1990, the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, ICLEI, was formed. In my opinion, that's when Canada began to incur tremendous debt. Adding more organizations almost invariably leads to increased costs and decreased efficiency. When local initiatives are transferred to international bodies, we soon discover that these non-governmental organizations don't align with Canadian beliefs, values, traditions, and our local needs. We have abundant land for locally grown food. So why are 2 million Canadians utilizing the food bank regularly? A third of them are children. Why is Canada so steeped in debt, projected to be $2.1 trillion? That amount has nearly doubled from 2008. Where did the money go? And why in this resource-rich country are many struggling to put food on the table? Part of the reason is we're signed up to the United Nations Agenda 21, thanks to former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, who I believe sold us out in 1992, and we've been going further and further into debt ever since. Did you realize that we are one of the few countries that pays carbon tax? That's right. China pays no carbon tax. India pays no carbon tax. I realize that this is controlled at the federal level, and I will share my thoughts as to how we can save money at the municipal level. Here's the good news. We are not indebted to these NGOs. This is a voluntary national organization that has little or no tangible benefit for Canada. Have you listened to the FCM staff partner with ICLEI when they attempt to sell their free program? And the ICLEI rep didn't even show up. How's that? The presenter was unconvincing and unable to answer basic questions that councillors asked. Questions like, what is the percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Or how long would it take staff to complete the 5-step milestone framework in the climate protection plan? One would assume that it might be reasonable to have the data at your fingertips to know what percentage we're dealing with before taking time to reduce emissions. I imagine when any of you make a presentation, you come as prepared as possible. You've done your homework. If there is no financial benefit for municipalities being involved with organizations like the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, why remain in the program? They accept no liability, yet we continue to support them. Taking valuable staff time, effort, at a time when fiscal responsibility is more crucial than ever. The Federal Green Slush Fund is riddled with scandal. I wonder about the Green Municipal Fund, don't you? Countries around the world are withdrawing their funds from organizations like the UN, the WEF, and the WHO. It has even been rumored that the UN Geneva is closing. That would be great. That would save hardworking taxpayers a lot of money, and municipalities could become the real decision makers, you folks, that you were set out to do in the beginning. Imagine the money we would save and how many people we could feed that are lined up today at the food bank. Yes, we can exit them. This would remove us from UN programs like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And that's riddled with scandal. 6,000 emails. Have you ever heard of ClimateGate? It's in there. Partners for Climate Protection Program. And finally, here's the great news. Canada is already carbon neutral. There's no business case for net zero in Canada. Carbon tax, if we didn't pay it, we'd be saving $5.7 billion a year. Catch that number, $5.7 billion. That would feed many hungry people. You folks have the power to convince Simcoe County to remove Severn from ICLEI and save a lot of time for your staff and your taxpayers' money. I hope that you will do your own research and you'll find out for yourself. There's no benefit, only liability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. Is there any questions from the committee?
This is the document. Sorry, Dan. This is the document, Climate Gate. 6,000 emails. I have them all. If you ever want to read them, I have more. I'm an independent researcher and I do my homework. So this is what you're dealing with. We all are. And this is for all of you to read, and I hope you will read it. It's hours and hours of research that I've done for your benefit. Okay, staff. Allison, thank you very much. Lori, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. Are there any members of committee that have questions at this time? Member Minnings?
I thank you through the chair. I do have a question for you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So in your research, do you have any research statistics, anything that you've discovered specific to Severn as it pertains to homelessness?
Well, I don't know that you have your own food bank here. I'm not familiar with it. If you do you? Oh, Coldwater. Okay. Well, I can only speak to ours in Aurelia, and I didn't bring the report. I do have the report and I'd be happy to deliver it up to you folks. It's full of stats. Particular to you by yourselves, I don't. But I did speak to the warden in Simcoe County. He was very receptive to this. I gave him the same document I'm giving you today. People are wanting answers. I know you're wanting answers too. I know you're overwhelmed with work. And that's why I do it. I'm retired. I don't have to do this. I don't get paid for it. But I feel it's my civic responsibility to know what's going on and what can we do about it. We know we can do lots about it. That's why I take the time to tell you what our unique, Canada is so unique with all these resources. We don't need to have 2 million people in Canada lined up at the food bank. Do you know a lot of those people in my research actually have jobs? They can't make ends meet. We were speaking at length to people at 250 West Street. I'm sure you're familiar with that new building. It's a cesspool of drugs and it's disgusting. And people that live there are living in fear. One of the ladies that spoke to us last week said, I'm afraid. I had a gun pointed at me. And the police are there all the time. They need police right on site. And these drug dealers need to be in jail. And the drug abusers, and it's through no fault of their own a lot of times. There's a lot of innocent people that get addicted. They need to be in rehab, not living with a lot of people that can't afford housing because they're not sleeping at night. They're so terrified. So yeah, I have those kinds of stats, but I also have a very thorough document on the food bank. So I'd be happy to bring that up to you. I had so much stuff today. I didn't bring that. Anybody else?
Member Brennan?
Yes.
Wow. Homelessness issues started well after the initiatives between 1945 and 1990.
Yes.
Sure. No.
Go ahead.
Let me talk now.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So to go and blame that on climate change initiatives is bizarre and disconnected. So the whole issue is we stopped building homes, affordable homes back in the 80s and 90s as a result of trickle down economics. That's what went wrong. That's why we have oligarchs running the US at the present time, those kinds of things. So homelessness is a serious issue. I agree. AMO is not saying to stop fighting climate change. AMO report is saying invest in the whole thing of homelessness.
Well, if you have
just
tell me when you're finished.
Well, I at some point in the very near future will make a presentation to this council with regard to climate change. And I can tell you, I'll be spinning a story with facts that's way different from where you're at right now. You talk about this and that, and ICLEI does fantastic work. We need both local and global initiatives to do stuff. So I'm not going to get into a big thing with you today, but you give me your contact number. I'll make sure you know when I'm coming. So
good, thank you.
The bottom line is that carbon is a problem. Now, the reason we're not going ahead with, yes, it's a very serious problem. And
sorry.
anything else is, I don't know, some sort of quasi weird science. It's well documented, the issues that are a result of the carbon. So now the carbon tax, the consumer one, is not popular because basically, you know, it's been, everyone considers it terrible. So we're not going to do that. That's why our current, the new Liberal leader has said he's going to get rid of it. It doesn't mean that it was the wrong solution. It just means that it wasn't popular. And right now, of course, there's attempts to stop the industrial carbon tax, right? You need to reduce carbon, period. If you don't bend the emissions curve, the science is so well documented.
I know.
You know, it's just a waste of time talking about anything else. So I vehemently, I just want to just make a point here, because you're connecting strange dots in strange ways. And to me, it's not a sensible argument. And while I don't want to be disrespectful here, it just, to me, just sounds like the same old story you get from the fossil fuel industry over and over again. So that's my view on that.
Do you know what the current level of carbon in the air, in the atmosphere is?
I wasn't prepared to talk about that today, but I guarantee you I can get that information.
I can tell you. So let's bring our research when we get together. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think we need a back and forth argument at this time. I know Member Burkett had a question, Member Minnings, and Member Cox. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair, and thank you, Ms. Kerr, for your presentation. What you didn't have in your report, it's a sad day that we live in the greatest country in the world, and yes, we do have homeless people. What you didn't mention was the silent homeless, the young people that have now taken refuge in their parents' homes. And I don't know the data, but there's a huge amount that are. But what I can tell you is both the deputy mayor, Member Cox, and myself do sit at county council. The great works that the county of Simcoe does by building the builds that they do, as far as affordable housing, as trying to protect the people that are vulnerable. And I hope you take the time to read some of the agendas that come forward, or speak to some of the people that are down there at the county. They have a passion for providing our vulnerable that we have in our communities with lodging. And it's amazing what we've done in the years past. We've come leaps and bounds from what we were at one time. And yes, we do need funding from the feds in the province to help us. And I know the province has given millions and millions of dollars to provide that. So I hope that you're aware of that, and that is in your report as well.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. Thank you, Mayor Burkett, for that. I spent a lengthy time at 250 West Street this past week. And those poor people that are getting subsidized housing, one, it's not enough. And secondly, they're taking people right out of the lighthouse and into 250. And these people are mentally ill. They need help. They need hospital help. They can't live amongst seniors and vulnerable people because those people are not sleeping. There's going to be a lot. You probably read in the paper what happened to one resident, but there's going to be a lot more. And I do my research, and I respectfully disagree with Councillor Brennan. I have all the proof to prove it. So I look forward to future presentations from you.
Member Minnings.
Thank you. No, my card was up earlier. I was just wanting to get, I know you read it when you first introduced the delegate about the presentation, and then council had the opportunity to ask questions. I can't remember the exact wording, but I'm just concerned that council is welcoming to our delegates that come. And we do maintain a certain etiquette here at our table, because I feel that that also reflects on me as a member of council. So just a reminder that if we have questions, I think that's the purpose of this, but I'm not 100% sure. So thank you for the opportunity to say that.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Cox.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm going to hit on what the mayor had spoken about, because I thought it was about homelessness. So the Simcoe County has a homelessness prevention strategy. It's a 10-point plan. And I know, as Mayor Burkett has said, we spend an awful lot of money trying to help homeless people. And most of the time it's putting out fires. And that's what is happening right now. And once hopefully we get a provincial government and a federal government, and they start to realize that we as a municipality can't give all our money because we don't have a lot.
I know.
And that's their job to do this. And we look to the county because they do our social services, like they have winter warming strategies, alternate space activation, motel voucher programs, winter warming centers, all sorts of things. But it is a sad day when I have many of my friends and myself, we have our children living at home.
I know.
Because they can't afford
They're lucky.
houses. Yeah,
They're lucky. They're not in a tent.
They know that. And many people understand that. But I still try to have some faith that if we can get some more money and if we can start to do some more affordable housing, that we will be able to help more people. We're looking at the apartments in Coldwater, putting them up. They'll be rent geared to income. We already have an apartment building there.
I know.
It's things that unfortunately the wheels of politics move slowly, and it's very frustrating. But thank you very much for bringing the homelessness aspect to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I make one further comment through the chair?
Yes.
That is a problem. And the problem is not throwing more money at it. The problem is dealing with the very basic, the foundation of the problem. You can't bring drugs into a country and get people hooked, innocent people, and then throw them into the not throw them, but put them in the lighthouse and then have them go up to 250. They're not well. They aren't well when they go up there. There was a woman had a gun held to her last week. And I know that woman. I've met her, and she's a very brave woman for coming forward. But the problem is throwing money. I know how much money your budgets throw to these things. And that's not the answer. The answer is mental health for the people that require it, and we all work together. And arguing about a carbon isn't going to solve the problem. Thank you.
We're concerned too.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you are. I come to your meetings sometimes and.
Member McIntyre.
Oh.
Thank you through the chair. Kathy, I appreciate your passion and how much time and effort you put into it. And I appreciate the numbers that you brought forward, 81,000 and more, and a possibility of tripling that to 250,000-ish. I too, like most of the people up here, are disappointed in the levels of government. We feel they're not doing enough. I don't know from here what you're really asking us to do. If you could just put that in a brief statement, and then I'd maybe have a better understanding. Struggling with,
right.
I know that homelessness is a major issue, and we really like to be able to wave a wand and have it gone. But what is it you really want our township and our council to do?
Through the chair, I have a long history in healthcare, so I know the problems of addicted people. It is not putting them in a household with other vulnerable people. It's getting them mental health. Now that there has to be strict rules with that, and right now we don't have them. Our levels of government don't look. They think they throw money at a problem. And they think that's great. It's a beautiful facility. But it's a dangerous facility in Aurelia. The answer is strong rules. It's like being in the army. When you've got a kid that doesn't want to adhere to rules, they need firm discipline, loving discipline, but firm. They have to go to rehab. There's where we're dropping the ball on our drug problem. And that's a lot of the problem. We won't even get into the climate. If you dealt with that issue, and there has to be, if you're caught with drugs in that site, you go to jail. It starts at jail because a lot of these, they're vulnerable kids themselves a lot of times. They're not all kids, there's adults too. But if you deal with that, first of all, let them know it's not a free ride. We're a little lax in this country on how we treat our criminals. Then what you do is you get them the mental help they need, and there's strings attached to that. You want to live in a very nice home, you're going to make your bed every day. You're going to get productive. Just like, well, Jordan Peterson said it, didn't he?
Follow up.
Go ahead.
I'm still I don't want to, what is it you want us to do?
I want you to go to Simcoe County and tell Warden Clark, which I did also, that we need to leave Ickley. They are not supporting us. What are your staff spending? If you look at your budget and you look at what your staff, and I don't know if you're actually doing the 5-step yet, that takes a lot of time and it's part of a much bigger agenda. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that agenda.
Well, I'm gonna just conclude with, we have members at this table who do go sit on the council in Simcoe, so we might want to leave it at that, and they can decide whether they'll do that or not.
Madam CAO.
Thank you. I don't want to in any way diminish the passion or the importance of this issue, but I would suggest that council just receive it for information because all of those things are unfortunately out of our jurisdiction.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion will read that the delegation by Kathy Kerr regarding the AMO's report on municipalities under pressure, the human and finance cost of Ontario's homelessness crisis be received for information.
Thank you.
Can I get a mover and seconder? Member Minnings, Member McIntyre, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Moving on to the consent agenda, would any members of council like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Member Taylor?
That's E2. Sorry.
E2.1. Thank you.
Okay, E.2 to E2.1. Any other members? Seeing none. Moving on to the approval of the regular agenda.
Thank you. The motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of item E2.1.
Could I get a mover and seconder? Member Taylor, Member Minnings, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to item G, reports for officials for direction. G.1, presentation of the chief building official and septic inspector. The septic reinspection program. Go ahead.
So as you guys know, my name is Amanda Renton. I am the septic inspector for the Township of Severn, and I'm here to present the septic reinspection program review of 2024. So these are today's topics. I won't list them all off. We'll run through them as I go through the slides. So the first topic would be the septic reinspection program. And this is just an overview of why this program is in place and how it's come to be. So in 2006, the Clean Water Act was established and it encompasses the drinking water source protection program. And that came up kind of linked to the Walkerton inquiry. So in 2011, the Ontario Building Code amended and established the mandatory on-site sewage maintenance program, inspection program. And then the Building Code Act allowed municipalities like our own to allow for the discretionary program as well. Okay. So then in 2020, our township, the Township of Severn, took on the bylaw and implemented the discretionary programs. So communication and outreach to our township is very important when it comes to this program. We have worked really hard. Our communication officers worked very hard to make this happen. Our standard outreach would be letters, letting the affected properties know, and then also educational material. A lot of the communication outreach includes social media outlet or expressing on that, also news articles, and then in tax inserts and whatnot, just to get that the message across about the program. So we will start with the discretionary in 2024. That's the main focus that we had, was the discretionary. So basically any property abuts to a body of water chosen within the bylaw. That's what we look at when we discuss the discretionary program. So the ones highlighted in green, those are the ones that we did look at within 2024. So it would be Gloucester Pool, Lake Couchiching, Green and Black River. I'd just like to talk about inspections and the process of it. Obviously, we do advise the homeowner of the inspection coming up, and that would be through a letter to them. We do include a frequently asked questions form in there as well, just to kind of eliminate any basic questions. So then the next thing would be when we go to the site to actually do the inspection, we do leave a door notice on the door, or I do. And then we leave a little goodie bag of information about septics and the environment at their door as well. The second part is the actual inspection itself. There's a lot of prep to get to that point. So what I do is I look into each property that's affected, get things prepared, go out on site, confirm what's on site with whatever's on file, and then obviously the next step would be to actually inspect the property. So invoice and follow-up. So as you see on the last page, there was an actual report there. That's what we send out to homeowners. There is a cost of this program. It is $150. So when we send out that invoice, we do send that report out to the homeowner as well after the inspection's been completed. To new systems, everything under 2 years is exempt from the program. Any deficiencies we find, we deal with in a manner that is geared towards that deficiency. Basic things that we look for are systems that are 40 years and older. We do require a licensed hauler to do a pump out and a report, and that be sent into the town office. The second part of that would be if someone does not have records on their property, then we would definitely make them create those records. And that's having a licensed septic contractor go out to their property, create those records, send in an assessment, and then also have a pump out to prove that their tank is in good working order. And that gives us information on their system as a whole. Okay, and just a little note that we do manage all properties the same, but we manage the deficiencies based on their deficiencies. So now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of numbers. This will be a review of 2024. Okay, so it's going to get into the numbers and make it a little boring, but you know, it's nice to touch on where we stand in relation to like how the program's going and the movement forward that we have within it. So basically, flip to the page. So within 2024, there were 458 properties. There were 86 exceptions. So those would be advanced treatment units and new systems. So when I say advanced treatment units, those are treatment units that are exempt from paying the fee, but I do still follow up ensuring that they do submit an annual maintenance agreement and a report each year. Okay, so it's not like we don't actually physically inspect the property, but that's something that we do look into as well. Okay, making sure that they're compliant. So within 2024, there were 373 properties actually inspected. 71 of those were 71 properties that were advanced treatment units and 15 that were new systems. Okay. The next part would be the properties that were actually inspected. So the 373, 213 of those were completed and 160 are still in progress. So when I talk about that, the completed ones would be that they were in compliance. And then the in progress ones would be the ones that are still outstanding to become compliant to the program. Okay. So out of the completed ones there was 151 in good standings. And then there were 62 that actually complied with the program. Okay, and then out of all of the properties, so the 458, there were 3 properties that had high deficiencies. So in 2024, I did make it out on the water to do some water access. I did name this island, but the ones I mainly did this year were landlocked properties on Gloucester Pool, okay? We were lucky enough that the township of Georgian Bay took us out and did the guide for us, and it was at no cost to us as well. So that's nice for us. We still have 12 properties remaining, unfortunately, just due to water access. It does make it tricky. And that would be the top end, so Severn River. Okay, and that includes some landlocked properties and some island ones up there. So we'll talk about the island ones. There was only 18 properties. 1 was an exception. So there was 17 inspected, and then 1 was an advanced treatment unit. So when I talked about the advanced treatment unit, this one was an advanced treatment unit. I didn't inspect the property as a whole, but I did look into their system. They had no records. They were outstanding on those documents that would be sent in as well. So that's something that I would look into as well. So out of the inspected, there were 12 in progress, and then 5 were completed. So out of the completed, 4 were in good standings and 1 complied. So this is an overview. We are now at the point of, we've completed a full 5-year cycle, okay? So this upcoming year will be restarting the program all over again. So this is kind of an overview of the full 5 years. It kind of gives us a broad spectrum and a broad look at the numbers and how many people have complied and how the program has taken off and how it has worked. So there was a total of 2,060 properties. There was 283 exceptions. Okay, so that would be the advanced treatment units or new systems. So we'll break that down as well. So the first pie graph here, I have to apologize. It is not 2024 discretionary. This is the full 5 years. Okay, that's a typo on my part. So we will look at, we'll break it down a little bit further. So there was 1,777 properties inspected, okay? The exceptions were the advanced treatment units at 169 and the new systems that were at 114. So out of the inspected, there was 1,217 completed, and there is still 560 outstanding. So out of the completed ones, there are 898 in good standings, and then 319 of those properties complied with the requests that I've set forth. So I'd like to bring this up. These are the septic permits within the septic reinspection program area. These are actually permits that are being submitted. So new systems, tank replacements, or bed repairs. I like to put this in not because this program is driven to expect people for replacement, but it is kind of nice to know that there are properties within these areas that this program has triggered that needs change, that needs the new systems. So as you can see, I won't number off all of the bar graph there, but in a total, there was 406 septic permits that were issued from 2020. So that's a lot of septic permits going out. Within the septic reinspection program, there was 192 of those new systems or a tank replacement or a bed repair. Okay. And I'm not saying that this is fully because of this program. There could be new builds and whatnot, but from what I do and what I witnessed, there's been a lot of change, so, okay. So this part, I put this in, there has been some questions from certain council members, public associations, public in general on what our enforcement is and what options we have as a municipality and what we can do to enforce changes if there are deficiencies. So I've listed a few, as I said, this 5-year cycle is over. So now we're gonna move forward into the next phase of the 5-year cycle. Some people would ask, why are you doing this again? What's the point when you've already done it once? As you can tell by the numbers, if you guys didn't doze off there, we still have some that are outstanding. We still have change to make. Things can change at a drop of a dime as well. So this is why we are doing this program all over again. And enforcement is part of that. Now that all the 5 years is over and done with, I can go back and reflect on what is outstanding still, and I can take a deeper look and enforce change in these properties now. So I put a little, I put a list there of what kind of systems that we will be looking at deeper to enforce change on. Illegal systems, so non-conforming to any type of past or present regulations. The second one would be failing beds or tanks. Steel tanks that have deteriorated over time. I do find a lot of those. I witnessed one this year where both the lids were collapsing in on into the tank. So it is a threat, right? The next one would be dumping of gray water and or black water. So the graph I have at the bottom kind of shows a process of what we can do and what we are doing. So typically, when I find a deficiency, the report goes out to them. I send a letter out to them, and it kind of outlines what their options are, and please contact me by a certain time. This program, we want to make it a positive outreach. We don't want to enforce because that doesn't reach the public as this being a positive outreach program. So moving forward, we do the letter. Our next step is a follow-up letter. And then typically we would do, now that the 5 years is over, I think a stronger letter for the people that have not complied. And at that point, if they're not going to comply, then we move on to the next steps. So within the Building Code Act, we do have the authority to place orders on properties. In a septic case, it would be more of an unsafe building. So we can place that order on properties to ensure that they would comply and come into regulation with their deficiency. And if they do not abide by those orders, the next one would be legal action. That's okay. So now we're into the fun part. The pictures. Everyone likes to see these. So we'll always go from the left to the right. On the left there, this was a septic bed. Oh, a critter had gotten into it. I know it's kind of hard to see. But left a large hole, about a foot size hole in the side of the septic bed, and they've created a den in it. So those are the things that I look out for, just to make sure no effluent's leaking out of that, and the bed is stable. The middle one would be an actual septic bed. Believe it or not, it's not just forest, and they just let it overgrow and it becomes almost forest area. And that gets into the concern of root infestation into the piping, and it can really mess with the bed and throw it off. The last one there is a hole in a tank lid. It may not seem like a big deal by any means, but it does create added water going in to the tank. Outside contaminants also going in there. It can cause a havoc as well. So these are structures on septic beds. This is a very common thing that I see. The first one there, would be a playground with a concrete slab underneath the playground, and that's directly on the septic bed. So that's something, if you're not getting enough evaporation from your bed, and the weight on your bed can throw off your piping, and this is why we would look out for those things as well. The middle one there is a full-size pool on top of the septic bed. So yeah, so like I said, the weight of that and it not allowing evaporation from the bed can very much impede the proper function of that. The last one there is, it is a small fire pit. I do find a lot of these like placed right in the middle of septic beds. Not only the heat from the fire radiating down can melt some piping, it can also throw off the way the bed is designed to flow through those pipes. So the next one here is, I did put things up there, but it's mainly showers up here. All these showers are just hooked up to water and we don't know where that water goes. So it basically becomes a gray water concern. So you soap up and everything just leaches onto the ground and there's no treatment of that gray water. So this one is a doozy. All three of these pictures are taken from a street within the township that is very established. And I was actually shocked to find all of these. The first one there beside the catwalk that they have, there was a 10-inch hole in the ground. It had like a concrete circle disc. And it kind of triggered me, like, what is that? You know, and it was all wet beside it. And so I have a probe that I go out with every time. And I stuck my probe in the hole and it just kept going and going and going. Later found out that it is a gray water pit. When I was at the site, there was many kids running around. And it being a 10-inch hole could be a serious danger for falling into. And not only the gray water concern, that's like obvious, but it's a danger in another sense, right? So the middle one there was a typical tank and bed system. The bed had failed and then it had backed up into the D box, which is the distribution box that splits it into the bed. And that was overflowing. So good one on this one is that it has been fixed. A new system has been installed. So, and that's a yay for this program, right? The last one there, this one was kind of a shocker, kind of like a neighbor dispute, but I went to the property that I'm standing on and they questioned me about the water running down and what I could do to enforce change on this. Basically, they claimed that the neighbor had a laundry facility and was dumping the washing machine water down his side lot, which would end up going down the driveway. So when I was there, you can't really see it in this picture, but you can actually see that there's suds in the water. So this is something that has to be addressed. And not only that, like gray water, it's not great going down the driveway, but it also poses a threat in the winter when it starts getting icy and it's just not healthy first and it's unsafe for the homeowner of this property. So next year is the restart of the program. So we'll start again. So we will have 309 properties. That's including all the exceptions. So advanced treatment units, new systems, anything that I come across, which this year will kind of be eliminated because we know all the vacant properties and everything like that. So and then, like I said, we still have the 12 outstanding island properties or landlocked properties on Severn River that we will be looking into. So in that area will be Lake St. George, And then, sorry, those are the discretionary ones that we'll be looking into. And then this year will be mandatory as well. So that's including areas around wellheads and intake zones. So those will be looked at as well. And that's about it for the presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Amanda. Member Taylor.
And through the chair to Amanda, like another good report here. So it's kind of a good news, bad news is the 3 that were high risk. What's the status of those 3 out of the 458?
They're still outstanding, and that's sorry, through the chair. So they are still outstanding. That's something that this year I will be able to look back on. They have been sent a notice of what they have to do to change that. Unfortunately, some of those were at the end of the year. So it is winter. It does take a little time for people to get, number one, it organized to correct these issues, and then also to implement those issues or corrections as well.
Yeah, the second question I have through the chair, the mandatory ones, are they annual?
They are every 5 years.
The mandatory one around intake, like water systems?
Yes.
So it's 5 years as well, is it? Okay.
Yeah, every 5 years.
Okay. And my last question, since we're going the second cycle, hopefully it's going to be clear sailing and you can get like it should be easier for you, hopefully. And I say this is a great program and we should keep continuing it. So let's see what you think about your forecast for 2025.
Yeah, so through the chair. This is an ongoing program. I deal with paperwork on a regular. So if I've requested something, say back in 2020 when it first started, sometimes I'm dealing with it now still, right? And so it's an ongoing affair. I know money's tight for people. I know enforcement is hard. I know this is like this topics dealing with septic and stuff is very important and harmful for the environment. But for basic things like upkeep and maintenance, as I request pump out reports, some people don't follow through on that right away because, hey, they just had it done a couple of years ago. Why are they doing another one? Which is understandable, right? So going forward, I think that, do I think it's going to be smooth sailing? Most likely not. Maybe a little bit heat off of us, but it's still going back and finding the past deficiencies that I was dealing with before, and things can change at a drop of a dime. So like a system that was failing or that was fine 4 years ago could be failing again or failing now, right? So this is why this program is important. It's important to keep on top of people, making sure that they are continuously doing the proper maintenance and upkeep on their septic systems or sewage systems.
Okay, once again, thanks for a great report.
No problem.
Member Brennan.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely excellent report.
Thank you.
And boy, oh boy, you saw the program and the importance of the program. Just 2 questions. And I don't know if you can or will want to answer the second one, but because of the educational component, I'm curious. But on the first question, is it frequent for people to have it pumped after they pumped it 2 years ago? It just seems to me that that's pretty close together for pump outs, unless you got like a, I don't know, camp of some sort going. Like,
Yeah.
geez, how many people are there?
Through the chair. So typically I suggest to homeowners every 5 years.
Yeah.
If it is low use, I suggest to them 3 years around there. Or if it's heavy, if it's less use, I can extend it to about 7-ish. You can extend it around there.
Yeah.
If it's more use, I typically tell them to shorten that to around 3 years. Say if I did an inspection, I noticed that their tank was 40 years or their system was 40 years, I request the pump out report and say that if they just had it done within 2 years, that is totally understandable. I don't want to impose more money out of their pockets and a pump out that's not really required at that point. So some of the local haulers around here have agreed to just do reports. So basically go out, inspect the tank without pumping it out, and I will accept that. I do understand that some people don't even want to do that, but I do understand that if they keep to their cycle of every 5 years and submit that pump out when they get it done, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's just, I was just looking at my bill from the last pump I had at my place, but I did add 2 new lids to the 2 chambers.
Yeah.
And like it's $700, and that was a couple of years ago. So, you know, I'm happy that I'm only doing it every 4 or 5 years, but it'd be, anyway, so that's interesting. The second question is, in your considered opinion, with regard to the inspections you do, how many of those people actually know that they should be doing a better job versus are just ignorant of the facts around septic systems? Did you have a ballpark figure on that? I'm just asking that question because you've got an emphasis on education. So, you know, how many need to stick versus the education?
So through the chair, the education part of this program is amazing. And me going out on site has very much opened my eyes to say, people being oblivious to what they have on site. Not everyone, I'm not saying that by any means, but there are a lot of people that don't even know they have a septic, that don't know how they work. And I think me being out there, and talking to these homeowners and informing them of what they should do and, the proper ways they treat their system is, eye-opening for them. And it's nice to get that across to people, and it actually improves the longevity of systems if you treat them right. So if they have that understanding and the knowledge to do that, then they can definitely get a little bit more life expectancy out of their systems, hopefully. And so I do not have a ballpark number on the people that are not informed of this, but I would say it's a large amount.
Member Cox?
Yeah, through the chair. A question, when you said unsafe property, so is that the term you used when you went in and you found a non-compliance and you considered it an unsafe property?
So unsafe building.
Building,
So
okay, an
that would
unsafe
be-
building, sorry.
That would be an order.
On order.
Yeah.
So I just need to clarify in this because I've had different calls. So if you declare it an unsafe building, does that mean they can still use it, or does that mean they're advised not to use it?
So that's part of the order. Jeff could maybe speak
Yeah.
on part of this as well.
Because this is a big one that I get.
Yeah, so if it is an septics, we want to see them functioning 100%, right? Is it an immediate danger? Is a house going to fall on top of you or anything like that? Most likely not, right? But when you're speaking of septic and sewage, it is unsafe in the sense that it is not healthy for you, right? So that is why the order could be placed on a property, and that's why that enforcement could happen to cut that immediate health concern off.
So does that mean that if I had a cottage or a house and next door to me had an unsafe building and we knew their water was going into the lake, let's say, or doing something wrong, is that when you tell them they can't use it anymore, or are they still allowed to use it until they get it fixed? Or is there it's like, you know where I'm going on this, because I get those calls.
Yeah, so through the
And they
chair.
can't understand why that person's still there when they know it's not a fit system.
So,
and it could be hurting the environment and people.
Yeah, so we have to do things in the proper
Right.
order. We have to make sure that there is proper documentation moving forward through this. Especially when it becomes into like an order or into the court system, especially. We want to see a complaint come in. We want to see all of those steps. Like I said, this program, and I know this is like an immediate concern, right? So we do like to inform and speak to the homeowner right off the bat. Obviously, we have the authority to go on properties and inspect and make sure that what the deficiency is. Sometimes we get a lot of calls and it's nothing, and it's not sewage related, it's a sump pump or something along those lines. But if we did find something along the lines of sewage leaking or anything like that, that's when we can go in and enforce change.
Okay, so the step would be you go in, you find it's an unsafe building.
Yep.
Can they still use that building?
Depending on the deficiency.
Okay, that's just what I'm going on. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
if it's something minor where I found like, say,
No, I'm saying something major.
yeah, so if the D box was backing
Yeah.
up, there's a pool of effluent on their lawn. Is it an environmental hazard? Yes. Is it
Safety.
is it still, it's contained on their lawn? It's not ideal by any means, but if they start doing those steps right away, that avoids placing orders. Okay.
Yeah.
So like I said, we try and work with the public as much as possible, but when they won't work with us, that's when we enforce change.
Okay, and thank you very much for that. I consider you an ambassador because I know you take all your things out there and you speak to them and you're very nice to them all. And it's 100% benefit to our residents and to our environment. And the bookmarks are ready and I can find you some, they've been printed. So I will drop them in tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I do have to tell you what Amanda does. She has a little bag and she takes information, not just septic information. She takes our events cards and puts them in there also to let people know what's also going on. And I think different township information. So they get it all. They have, it's like a welcome wagon. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Member McIntyre.
Thank you through the chair. It's an excellent report, Amanda. My question is, on the beginning of the maintenance inspection program section, you've got Gloucester Pool, Lake Coochichin, Green River, and Black River as being inspected in the last last year.
Yep.
That leaves 7 others, Severn River, and et cetera, Little Lake, and many others. Do you get to them this year, or is that the beginning of a new program, or?
Yep. So
You've got some catching up to do with people who didn't comply. So you're doing that, and then are you going to do these programs as well?
So through the chair. So basically I start the 5-year program all over again. Within those 5 years, I've split certain areas up. So next year will be the discretionary around Lake St. George. And then the mandatory part which will be around the wellheads and intake zones. So some of those areas, they're scattered. So there's Cold Water, wellhead. There's one off Trent Trail, Sandcastle, Bass Lake. There's an intake on Lake Coochichin as well. And it's all based on a vulnerability scale within those areas. So those are the properties, or sorry, within those boundaries, those are the properties that I would hit within those. And then following on through the four other years would be going back, and they're all discretionary after that point. And those would be all separated as per I did before. And we'll hit every single area. So each lake and river.
Just a follow-up comment. You do an awful lot of work and you do good work, and I appreciate very much. You've got a lot of work still to do, so we'll be seeing you here for many years to come. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, could we have a motion, please?
Thank you. Motion reads that the presentation from Amanda Renton, septic inspector, regarding the septic reinspection program be received for information.
Thank you.
Shoot. Yeah, could we take a 5 I'd like to bring this meeting back to order and move on to reports from officials, item G.2, planning report P 25-012, removal of holding provision 13, 3700 Narrows Road. Emily?
Thank you, Chair. So as you'd indicated, this staff report is for direction before the committee today to seek the removal of holding provision 13 from the property recognized as 3700 Narrows Road. The subject property is part of the Narrows Island condo and subdivision agreement. In 2012, as part of the subdivision agreement, various conditions were imposed through the subdivision agreement for certain things to be completed before the lots can be eligible for building permits. A part of that was the requirement for site plan control, and that is stipulated through holding provision 13. Earlier this year in January, the applicants completed the site plan agreement process, and the agreement has since been registered on title. So they've applied for their building permits at this time, and the township is ready and in a position to issue them, subject to the removal of holding provision 13, now that all of those requirements have been satisfied. So we're just seeking direction for consideration of a bylaw to lift the hold on that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, could we have a motion, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Motion reads that planning report number P 25-012 dated March 19th, 2025, with respect to the removal of a holding provision for 3700 Narrows Road be received, and that a draft zoning bylaw amendment be presented to council for consideration at the next available meeting. And further, that the bylaw to remove the holding 13H13 provision be effective upon passage.
Thank you. Could I get a mover and seconder? Member Taylor, Member Brennan, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to new business, we'll be speaking about E.2.1 at this point in the agenda. Okay, Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair to planning, I had two questions there. So we waited quite a while for approval from the county. What changes have they made to our official plan? If you could, and then I have a second question.
If I may, through you, Chair Jansen, to Member Taylor. So the main changes with respect to the official plan were just a few minor mapping changes and a few policy clarifications. The one that you'll probably notice in the notice of decision from the county is the non-decision on the employment lands. So that is the most significant piece on the official plan.
That leads into my second question. So can you define a non-decision as it refers to employment lands, and how does this affect our township going forward?
If I may, through you, Chair Jansen, to Member Taylor for the follow-up question. So basically, a non-decision means that a final, or I guess a final decision cannot be made on specific policies and or mapping while the balance of the official plan is suitable and can be approved. So in some cases, there's one non-decision. Some municipalities have multiple non-decisions. So with respect to your question specifically about employment, based on recent changes to the Planning Act and the new Provincial Planning Statement 2024, employment uses have to be broken out further and have to be explained further and identified further. So there is a new definition of employment area in the Planning Act and the PPS 2024. And those areas include industrial uses, warehousing, and associated retail uses and that sort of thing, office uses. The employment areas cannot include institutional uses such as hospitals, commercial uses, including retail, and standalone offices. So under our current official plan, those are all grouped together. And under our new official plan, those have to be broken out further. So that's why there's a non-decision, because the county wishes to work further with us on breaking out those uses, in part because we have an employment lands deficit. So that's part of the reason for that.
Yeah, and just a comment from I think we waited way too long to get the approval from the county. That's just my opinion.
Member Cox.
Yeah, through the chair to Andrew. Andrew, is the 20-day period up? for comments?
If I may, Chair Jansen, through you to Member Cox, no, we are still in the 20-day appeal period. It ends on April 1st.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any further questions from committee? Seeing none, do we have a motion, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Motion reads that the notice of decision with respect to an official plan from the County of Simcoe be received for information.
We got a mover and seconder, please. Member Minnings, Member Cox, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving into item I, closed session. Could we please have the room closed? Thank you.
Thank you. Motion reads that committee resolve in a closed session that this meeting is hereby now closed to the public pursuant to Municipal Act SO 2001, Chapter 25, Section 2392, for the purpose of considering the personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Member Taylor, Member Minnings, all in favor? Carried. Okay, starting with item Okay, do we have a motion? Are we coming out of close? And
Coming
then
out
we
of
have a
close.
motion?
Give me one moment. Okay, so motion reads that closed session adjourned at 12:15 PM and that this meeting is hereby now reopened to the public.
Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Member Minnings, member Cox, all in favor?
Sorry, could I get a recorded vote
On coming out of close or the next one?
on the next one?
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
This was-
So we had mover, member Minnings and member Cox, all in favor?
Okay, next motion is that administration report A 25-010 dated March 19th, 2025. Regarding a bylaw enforcement matter, Shoreview Drive be received and that the request for dismissal of the complaint be denied, and further that staff conduct a review of the township's fence bylaw.
Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Member McIntyre, member Burkett.
Okay.
We have a recorded vote.
May I have a
Vote
recorded vote?
requested by member Minnings for or against.
Against.
Okay, member Burkett for or against.
4.
Okay, member McIntyre for or against.
4.
Okay, member Cox for or against.
4. Oh.
Member Brennan for or against.
4.
Okay, member Taylor for or against.
Against.
Member Jansen for or against.
4.
Okay. Then we just have a motion to adjourn, and then please don't forget that we have a quick special counsel.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Meeting B and is hereby now adjourned at 12:17 PM.
Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Member Taylor, member member Brennan? And all in favor? Carry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we taking 5 minutes and then,
Sure. I can, if it's easier, I can just give you a hard copy of the agenda. Then we can keep going.
Council, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I already printed it, but that's all right.
Have a good day, everyone.
The only thing I don't have
Oh.
the,
Bye. Okay. No. I'd like to call the meeting to order, 12:18. At the town, our land acknowledgement. At the Township of Severn, we recognize the following land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and which the Township of Severn operates is part of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been inhabiting and caring for this land, and in particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Ojibwe or the Chippewas people. This territory is covered by the Lake Simcoe Treaty 16 and the J. Collins land purchase. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. We'll have a moment of reflection. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No public meetings or hearings, no presentations, no delegations, no consent agenda, adoption of the regular agenda, please.
Motion reads that the agenda be adopted as circulated.
Moving a seconder, moved by member Taylor, seconded by member Jansen, all in favor. Carried. Reports from officials for direction. New business. Just a bylaw. K1, bylaw number 2025, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Board of Directors for the Coldwater Business Improvement Area, 2025-19. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none?
Motion reads the bylaw number 2025-019 be and is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Moving a seconder, please. Moved by member Brennan, seconded by member Jansen. All in favor? Carried. No announcements, no closed session, a confirmation bylaw. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Reads that bylaw number 2025-20 be is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Movement a sec. Member Taylor, member McIntyre, all in favor? Carried. Adjournment.
This meeting is now adjourned at 12:20 PM.
Mover, member Jansen, seconder, member McIntyre, all in favor. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been
Goodbye, everyone. Have a good day.
Here.
Bye.